Nyt Espoo liikkuu. Selvästi. No niin. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Aristotle said that. I'm going to document this working process. From this content, I can make slides with visuals on top of this audio podcast. And I'm absolutely certain here is tremendous value for anybody who is open-minded and able to be curious for this inspiration and interpret for their own purposes, for their own life, for their own choices, goals, passions that drives them forwards. I tend to emphasize the importance of open space for interpretation. Everybody is absolutely free to make their own interpretation, and ultimately everybody is living their life as their own interpretation. So I warmly welcome you for this journey through the books, the pages, the chapters of life. And it's always wiser to learn before making mistakes by your own. Oh, let's get started. To begin with, a summary of all chapters which explore social behavior within human nature, I came up with a slide that illustrates the levels in a league of care. Since everybody has a paradigm, standing point, and viewpoint where you are, your being, where you are at. Now, exploring that and expanding that forwards, everybody is going towards new and fresh relevance for themselves. And that usually happens through trust and love. But before that takes place, there is care. And before you can care about something, you have to be within that presence where you establish a degree of comforts and securities, which are more and which override your insecurities. And right there, if we draw a line where you are at, and then we draw about that line of your care and trust and love, then we can also draw below where you are at insecurities. Also levels where there is no more dignity anymore. And ultimately the level where there is caring the least. The most profound foundation was that actually when I compared this dynamic of care to those ultimates, what is, above and what is below, above and beyond, virtuosity that cares the most, and simultaneously that same virtuosity cares the least. And that means whenever the collaborative direction is not in unison anymore, when there is no more unity, when there is no more forwardness for that same direction, twofold direction, that mutuality in the moment of presence, it's just a while, then in that case, you can drop it. It is that one phrase, we happily pass out. Happily pass out. That is the least care. Since ultimately it is understanding that each of us are free for life. Each of us has their own will. Right there, you can always go in different directions. Whereas if we go to the same direction, then we are on the levels above oneself. And right there, if we go upper and upper at those levels, there also comes a level where you cannot care anymore, because it's so much out of the league of your own care, securities or normalities. And above that, there is also the virtuosity that cares the most. And it comes down to a simple line: we can live to the fullest. So in the above there is virtuosity that cares the most, we can live to the fullest. And down, way down in the opposite contrary, there is also virtuosity that cares the least, we can happily pass out. Makes life tick and go forwards, and what makes not. Since there is that middle ground, how we can differentiate it and clarify it. And there is more depth to that than just certainty and uncertainty. There is more to it. When we draw a horizon, rising sun or sun setting, there is that line above and that line below, under the waves, the depths. And then there is sunrise. All uncertainty of life and maybes are below the line. I'm not going to cut them off the radar straight away, but that's just normal neutrality of life. Things are evolving and they are either requiring their own space to evolve further forwards and so forth. Whereas on the line there is established connection that is enough clear that we are open-minded for opportunities, possibilities. That is on the line. And quite frankly, I like to think that a connection that is made on the line is quite an achievement already. Whereas above the line, we are making things happen together, working and in presence. And there is already certainty of us. As you now see, and if you think about your nearby connections and then connections which are more far away, you can clearly see that who are where on that radar, who are rising sun and who are on the horizon, bring their light forwards, bring their energy to get things go forwards. And where on the contrary, there are, especially in these times, we have a lot of uncertainty and people not even know themselves where they want to go, what they want, how they want to decide, and when is the right time for them to feel good about themselves so they can connect to anybody else. People have a lot of uncertainty and anxiety within themselves these days. Whereas I think that anyone who is above the line on the horizon, they have enough reason to motivate themselves that even there is a bad day, they can motivate themselves to go forward with it. They have enough big of a why they want to do it. And when you know why, that person can live through any how. And then there is only the open question when. But since your connection is established over the line, you can almost spontaneously plan things out and make things happen. That's above the horizon. And then The other day I got this aphoristic question like, what is control? Who is in control? And in short, I just say that what is not quote unquote control, and what is not control is good communication. Good communication is more of a leadership, not control. And in leadership, there is always established reasons why there are boundaries and standards how things should happen and how we can plan things out. That's leadership. So if we think back to that horizon and what's on the radar, what's off the radar, what's below in the uncertainty and maybes, to all that we apply boundaries. And what's valuable to us? What's valuable to me? What's valuable to you? And then when there's leadership, it's what's valuable to us. So when it's above the horizon, then it's valuable to us. But before that, before there is any connection in line, each of us are asking what's valuable to me, And right there are personal boundaries and standards that are kind of applied filter to that radar, that horizon. If someone cannot get through my boundaries, they stay below the horizon all way before they get to the line through the boundaries. What they are ready to do, ready to go for, how they view me personally, how they view others, what's their attitude. Are they, keeping themselves more as a closure, or are they more of a open-minded? All that are taken into account by boundaries. And I think we have to know what we want and not be afraid to go after what we want. And that is also a boundary. See, the dynamic shifts when it's below the horizon and when it's above the horizon. Where it's below, it's more uncertainty, what we are. But when it's above, then there are already established ideas, what we want, and we are not afraid to go after it since we have certainty for us, behind us, our dynamic. And now, as you see this whole picture, let me clarify you, it is that simple. Anyone, and relations are not complexes. Anyone who says that it is not simple is lying. Perhaps not lying, but most likely. They are just not certain about themselves. They are not sure where they want to go, why, when, how they want to do it, what they want. And it's not up to your life to make them certain about themselves. That can happen when there is clear connection and when it's on the rising horizon. You will certainly make each other more certain about yourselves. But before that, anyone must come to their own decision by their free will where they want to go with who and how. And that decision must come spiritual and physically out. So in the millisecond, I see reluctancy or resentment in presence. That is by their genuine micro adjustments in languages, how they express themselves. Right that second, we are already dropped to the uncertain space. And it's probably time to give more space. It's probably time to back off. It's probably time to go back to the establishment of connection. And now, to wrap up the horizon, you see from this equation what comes to your personal relations, and when it's twofold or manifold, or whether it's yet to be clarified where it's going, whether it's going up or down, you see that from this equation you come out within the realm of possibilities. Whether these dynamics of uncertainty or certainty are more or less controlling it, there's always that realm of possibilities. To simplify, when something is just below the horizon, everything is moving on all the time. Life is moving on all the time. Any day, any hour, someone can come up with more intentions, with better direction, with better horizon, and things and life gets rolling on with that direction. So if any of your relatives or friends or if yourself are that kind of person who is kind of wavering around and seems that horizon is just below the surface, below the waves, it's time to get it above the line of horizon. And it's time to get it moving on. Since life is so fast-paced these days. In a week, anything can happen that was totally off the radar. And in a week, the horizon may capsize completely the other way around. In a week, you may get to know a circle that makes up completely new realm of possibilities where your life can go. So with these encouragements, keep up with those good persons who are on your bright horizon and keep it moving on, keep it rolling, since nothing else is more valuable than time. And time shall never be spent below the horizon. It's always rolling on with those establishments on the line and then above it. So, really, once upon a time. Now to begin with an example of common but subtle weirdness in social situations. What is causing or what is the common weirdness? And I use weird because I think that awkward situations are usually somehow good or fun or there's somehow value in the situation. For example, if a conversation is hard, it's usually somehow valuable, somehow worth having. Back to the example, anyone cannot just dim the lights on someone. Anyone cannot just shame somebody out of nothing. Someone does the right thing or ask a good question, right question, is doing the right thing. Anyone cannot just put a down on them, Anyone cannot just undermine them out of nothing. Yet anyone is free always to leave. Anyone is free to go on with their life and care less or whatever. Simply, if a friend of that person asks them, why did you leave? Where did you go? There comes the justification. I'm just giving this as an example. Justification in common expression. And what and for what they leave is very different than what they do for real, Why did they leave for real? Expression within insecurities. It's not within common expression to tell how did you feel for real in that situation. How did you, what you were insecure about. And people don't express the truth within themselves so clearly. Instead, the weirdness is that everyone wants to look favorably and better out of any kind of situation. Anyone wants to justify for their friend and even for themselves why their justification was the better thing to do. Even they left the good thing. You see, I'm giving this as an example so we can draw the dynamic here. And right there, where you express the justification out of that situation, right there, I think there is the common weirdness, It's real that someone is able to express such situations with real integrity. Right there, we come upon dialogue within ourselves, what we are learning and justifying for ourselves, what we are able to recognize, why, how, what we do in order for the better direction. This is directly linked to common social situations because those situations are usually the driver for ourselves. You know, what we are able to express or come out of and give the energy forward, that somehow comes back to us. And right there, when we receive it again, we kind of see either the real integrity of the situation or we tell something else for ourselves. You see? You see the point here. And right there in between those lines happens now the learning for back oneself. To a period of time in presence. When we see each other, there is relativity, what's relevant to us. That happens within our leadership. And by leadership, I simply mean we both understand what's valuable to us. We do what's valuable to us. And we have that vision and that plan. And we align our actions, including for that valuation. Thereby it's realized into life. Leadership is about empowering others to take ownership. What belongs to you? And these keys are related to evolving life. Each of us evolve on a daily basis. Each of us teach ourselves, even without being aware of it. We teach ourselves. And when we evolve, there are lots of matters which call for your focus, your calling. And when your focus is not there, you will lose train of thought about it. You just shift to something else. The train of thought you forget. Relative to personality. What each of us is reminding every day. What we are reminding ourselves about, whether it's within values, there is polarity of a personality and compatibility within another one. For what and for whom one is willing to give undivided